Morning, everybody. This is Saber Talbot here, also known as Kirkland Mosley. Today's stream has been, I wanted to get something out there onto the web, um, because it's been a topic in my past, and it seems to keep coming up over and over and over again. Hey, buddy. And and I know what it might seem kind of off-putting to come out with something just like not even a week's notice dealing with the subject at hand with certain people taking their lives. I'm gonna refrain from saying their name, but if you type it in, if you just type in suicide, I'm sure he'll pop up. But essentially, and I'm gonna put it on the record, I never knew the guy. Just bombarded my life recently with people talking about the how suicide and suicide prevention and things like that. And I wanted to share with my history on suicides, helping people deal with suicide and whatnot. So I mean, it's really hard to, like, what angle do you start on when you talk about this subject, when you're trying to keep in mind the well-being of those that are still here with us. Um, I'm gonna first say get my belief out about the whole situation at hand. For people who do the act of taking their own lives as a means to escape and whatnot, there's a reason why a good majority of us call it the coward's way out. It's because if you take your own life, you're not answering the problems that are at hand. You're only running from them. And what a lot of people don't account for is because they don't think about the consequences of their actions. They think they're free from any consequences now that they're gone. But now when you take your life and you don't deal with the things that are at hand, you leave people that still stay behind to deal with these issues at hand. So like with the person that we're talking about today, he went ahead and he took his life, I believe, sometime at the end of last week, beginning of this week, and they found him Monday morning, Tuesday morning, and it comes to find out that he had a history of mental health issues. He had joked about it on social media. He had shown all the red flags. Like, apparently when he was on stream in front of the camera, he was a joyous, happy-go-lucky person, but off stream he was almost like a cynical recluse. He thought ill of others and thought he was better than everybody. He like had a god complex apparently, according to some of the feed. Like I said, I didn't know the guy personally, but you'll be like, Saber, you're just a fucking nobody yourself on the internet. What do you have to input on it? Well, I myself have never had suicidal thoughts. I myself have never attempted to take my own life. From a very young age, I've always thought of that being wrong. I didn't need to think twice about, what are the consequences of taking one's life, just to escape from any problems. I get more joy out of my life knowing that whatever problems come my way, I step over them instead of letting them step on me. So, and on top of that too, just because I haven't attempted suicide or I have you know had to deal with a situation like that on a first person scale, I've lost friends of the family to suicide. I've had to save people from suicide when I was in the military. I was a medic for the Marines, and when you're a medic for the Marines, you have to take care of the people around you, both physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. And and that's the one of the things that I wanted to like come across too, because like I said, a lot of times when you have an opinion, the first thing that's going to come out is, well, what the fuck makes you such a specialist on the topic at hand? So that's why the title of today's video was Suicide Prevention and a little bit on Saber's Past, because Saber's Past has ultimately paved his way to encourage people not to give up. And what I mean by that is that I was born in the 80s. My mom is Filipino and European, I believe mostly like Russian or Czech, and my dad is African American and Hispanic. Now, the people who are closest to me know this fact that I am pretty much predominantly Filipino, which is why you see a lot of the Spaniard features in my face, and then a lot of African American in me, so let alone my mannerism. I also grew up in Oakland, California for an extended period of time, as well as Detroit, Michigan for an extended period of time. And between being those two areas, which in the 80s and 90s, they were not biracially friendly. So growing up in Oakland, California, as a biracial kid of both of Asian and African, ancestry, Asians didn't respect you or care about you, and my African American friends or associates didn't respect me in any kind of aspect growing up, just off the sheer fact that they thought that I was trying to be a poser, or that they thought that I was trying to be like them. And then I was, like how they call like the Oreo cookie, where if you're a black person, you're trying to act white, but you should be embrace your blackness. Oh, don't know why my headset was trying to power off. Maybe because it's got a low charge. Hold on, real quick. We don't need this. But hold on. There we go. That's why I was hurting last night. So yeah, so growing up in the 80s and 90s, growing up in the 80s and 90s wasn't easy. I'll have to find myself by myself, often ridiculed just off my ethnicity alone. So, but that never discouraged me from anything. I always found, solace with whatever pet I have at the time, or then that's kind of like why Twitch for me is a nice little venting point, because of the fact of the matter is that I love playing video games. That is my addiction. And that is what, like, essentially what a video game does. It unplugs you from the current reality that you're in and allows you to dive into another reality to experience emotions and points of views that you wouldn't normally be able to experience. That's why books, before video games, before film, even like that film was a means of escaping before video games. It just, every time your means of escaping antes up, it feels like. Books at one point, people ridiculed, oh, you're reading a book, you think you're smart because you read the book, or whatever stupid shit. People will always find a reason to put you down when they themselves don't know how to deal with their own society, their own reality, not society, their own reality. And you try to not let those motherfuckers get you, and that's why the internet is so filled with trolls, because they themselves have no other means to cope with what life has dealt them. So they feel like their only purpose in life is to make someone feel as bad as them, and start putting them down by, like, calling them out by the physical obviousness, is rather they're overweight, they're too short, they're white, or whatever. I mean, me myself, I've been called every goddamn name in the book because of me being both a biracial child, well, actually more than just two races, but predominantly biracial child, and not just by, like, strangers, randos, and even some of my family members. I remember, and now this is going to be a little bit of PC right here, but I remember my nana in Detroit, Michigan, my father's mother, so my grandmother on my father's side of the family. She told me one bit of advice the year before she passed away. You're kind of blocking the light, sweetie. Oh, wait. She gave me one bit of advice while, she was, at the time, she was like, oh, what? Oh, and how old was Nana? That was in like 2007, 2008, when I came back from the military to get a car for my dad. She said, on my dad's side of the family, because I'm junior, everybody calls me Bo. It's like, hey, Bo, sit down for a second. I want to talk to you. She started asking questions about the military. How was the military? Now, because in that time frame, I was the only person of my generation on that side of the family. I had cousins that would later join the military, but I was the only one who went the stupid route. And I'll explain what that means in a second. But she asked me, so, Bo, how they treating you in the military? And my Nana, oh, I fucking love Nana. At this time, though, she was in her 80s, if I remember correctly. And, like, not even 100 pounds, always smoking weed and, talking shit. And she asked me, it was like, do they know that you're black? I was like, Nana, I don't, at this point in time, it never really has came up. about my ethnicity at this point in my military career. They just know that I'm a big dude not to fuck with because people have tested that part of the water.
Yeah.
And she said, "Okay, now just to let you know, Dad told me that your dad told me that you're going to be going down to the South or whatnot to train with those white boys." I was like, "Yeah," and she says, "They if they find out, they will never let you forget that you're a black person." I was like, "I don't forget that I'm a black person. If it comes up in conversation, I was like, yeah, I'm a black person, but just because I got the complexion and the straight hair doesn't mean that I'm not black. My dad is black as shit, and my nana is black as shit." But she says, "Okay, now. So the main point of what I'm trying to get at, Bo, is that you were born a nigga. Never let them take that away from you, and always be proud of your African American heritage because we are strong people because we've had to endure so much." And that kind of stuck with me, and it always has been. And to hear that this dude that took his own life, finding out his ethnicity is kind of like strange. That like, did he not have the family members to tell him, be proud of who you are. Don't let anybody tell you what you are and are not. And this dude, like, it's sad to say, like he had a phrase too. It was like, "No bitch niggas," and for him to have that phrase and then do something which is ultimately a bitch move, it's kind of sad. But yeah, like but and back to what I was trying to really go on, like my history and whatnot. Being biracial, dealing with a lot of racism in the 80s and 90s, and then ultimately when I became an adult and I blew up to the size of a fucking house, and then the military just made it even more fine-tuned and gave me a laser to focus on. But the funny thing is, I went in the military as a medic because I've always had it in me to help those. I've always enjoyed seeing, like, going above and beyond to make sure that someone else is taken care of. And to talk back to to segue back into the whole suicide thing, 1998, I was just a teenager at the time, and we had a close friend of the family. His name was Adi, and Adi was more of my mother's friend that was around, like, when my mother's boyfriend at the time, and he would just hang out with all the the teenagers and all my friends and play video games like Nintendo 64 or some or whatever PlayStation 1 at the time. And he was like a big fucking kid, but he was like in his 20s, his mid 20s. Then around 98, 99, his brother comes over to the house, and him and he's like all in tears and whatnot. And he goes and he tells my mom, and then my mom comes back and he says, "Hey, just so you know, Kirk, Adi had taken his life." And I was like, "Well, why? Why?" Hold on, quick. Um, so pretty much a childhood friend had taken his life over something very stupid, and apparently his friendships weren't enough to stop him from doing this stupid thing over a female. And that's where I think I started cementing my hatred for people who did shit like that. And so that was like my first ever encounter with someone stupid enough to do something like that. I wouldn't have another encounter with someone attempting suicide went until I was in the military. In the military, we have this terminology. It's called, excuse me, it's called a Dear John letter. A Dear John letter is, for those who don't know, is when your significant other sends you pretty much a breakup letter while you're in the military. At the time, I was married. I didn't get a Dear John letter. My goofy ass ex-wife at the time, she stuck through it. But that didn't go the same for some people in boot camp and while I was deployed. The one in boot camp, um, he didn't succeed in taking his own life. He did have a mental breakdown, and but he didn't make any attempts. He just had a breakdown about it. And at the time, I was not trained in the medical field, so I didn't really do too much. But I saw him, and the fact that some of his fellow bunkmates were ridiculing and teasing him about him having a breakup, I thought the shit was terrible. I mean, and the fact that in our society, we live in a world where if we see weakness to any extent, instead of trying to reinforce that person to ensure their safety and whatnot, we attack them. It's very fucked up. And then the next time, still choked up about audio a little bit. Thank you. But the next time would be while we're on the ship going from South Carolina over to Iraq. Now they're a Marine this time, though, not a sailor. Got his Dear John letter, but he kept his Dear John letter a secret. We wouldn't find out that he had a Dear John letter until one time while training on the flight deck of well, we weren't on a carrier, we were on an LHD. I won't say which one. But while training on the fucking ship, he just jumped off the fucking deck 90 feet into the water below. Well, thankfully the asshole survived. But then because he attempted suicide on a ship like that, there's really nothing we can do in terms of, well, we were able to save the guy. We got him on the ship, we detained him and whatnot. And then it took like, I think another 7 days before we can get him to the help he truthfully needed. So for 7 days, all the medical personnel, well, random, I won't say all, but random medical personnel had to do what's called a suicide watch. And a suicide watch is you spend anywhere from 4 to 8 hours just making sure that the asshole doesn't do that again while he's detained, handcuffed in the medical wing of the ship. And with me being a medic at the time, yeah, I had a few sit downs with that idiot, and I just had some back and forths with him, and that's when I think it really started to cement in me that people are fucking terrible. And that's when it started clicking in my head. I still did my duty to be a protector of my Marines. I don't need that.
If you need it.
Yeah. And when I got back from Iraq, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress as well as an antisocial personality disorder. So, for any of those who stumble upon this video later in life and ask me, Kirk or Saber, what makes you so special and able to talk with it? Lost a friend as a teenager? It's seen 2 accounts of people having a mental breakdown and a suicide attempt in my military career. And then on top of that, when you get diagnosed with a mental disorder, it's just a broad blanket of what they label it as. When you're labeled with PTSD, that's just saying that, high stress causes you to fucking have certain breakdowns. Which I had sound sensitivity, night terrors, and huge fucking anger issues. Oh, you're cooking something? Oh, you're making the cinnamon rolls. But when I got back from the military, I was diagnosed with that. Due to the fact that the infliction happened during wartime, and I didn't hurt nobody, I didn't hurt myself, I didn't kill anybody. I was just extremely fucking angry, almost to the point to where it was damn near homicidal. And that's why I was discharged from the military for my mental health. So I am very fully aware of what the procedures are dealing with mental health, and both being afflicted at the point, like in my youth, with it. What do I mean afflicted at my youth? I still fucking deal with it every now and then, and Sushi has to deal with it too. Every now and then I do have a night terror episode, and it's not nice. But
Not ready yet.
Okay. Why are they being microwaved? Is that the icing, or is that the cinnamon rolls? Don't run them both.
I stopped it.
But
That's right. We get a power outage if I run the microwave and
yeah, and everything's going at the same time.
So and streaming on top of that, it would just go.
Yeah. So, but
I forgot.
so yeah, so that's why when I hear people taking their lives, and it's not just this one incident that happened this past week, but last year a famous streamer lost his closest friend, who was his editor at the same time, to the same fucking selfish, movement.
Mhm. And there was a big movement on that.
Yeah, and then on top of that, we've lost celebrities, musicians, comedians. We lose a lot of people that are either done dealing with the stresses of being alive, or they themselves feel like there's no answer other than that solution. And the big takeaway from it is that what I want to share with the world is that there's always a way to deal with your stress. And life is stressful. No matter what, there's going to be people that put you down. There's going to be people that pick you up. There's going to be all kinds of uneventful things that happen. Death of a loved one, death of, a pet. Just death in general is something we can't escape. But seeing how it's something that we can't escape, we shouldn't, accelerate the procedure by taking our own lives. Because at the same time, too, what a lot of people don't think is that the reason why it's called a selfish act is because when one takes their own life, they they themselves have no more of the problems to deal with that is currently afflicting them. That is true. But what ends up happening is that all the stress goes on to their next loved one. So, like, say for instance, this person, he kills himself. His mom is still alive. He's talked about his mom on his streams. He loved his mom. He loved his mom with a passion. But what do you think it says about her and her parenting, that now that she has to deal with the stigmata of having a son that took his own fucking life over. And what is starting to come up to the surface was it was social media. It was YouTube, Instagram, and I believe Twitter, where, like, he was saying that it was filled with toxicity. He was going to, trying to be edgy, trying to stay relevant, trying to just be a big name in this big ass pond of social media and content creation. That ultimately he went for the ultimate edge to try to out himself, I guess. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't know the guy personally, but when you say it like that, you give people the power over you to dictate you being alive or you dying. It's not right. And so, um, with that being said, eh, what I recommend for people, if you do have suicidal thoughts, if you are dealing with the stresses of life and you're finding out that your normal niches aren't taking away the edge, like for me, I like everybody I fucking know has an addiction to deal with life. That's what addictions are meant for. Addictions are meant to help you cope with what you're dealing with. Some addictions are bad, which are like, the obvious hits like alcoholism, drug usage, being a sexaholic to, dangerous standards. Yeah. But then there are also good addictions that you can have, which come in the form of, like, I have a huge addiction to puzzles, which I find a lot of my games are puzzle related. Um, Sushi, she enjoys her art, even though she needs to
Yeah,
brush up on her art.
yeah, I'm pretty rusty.
But she herself has dealt with, mental stresses
Yeah,
in the
and
past.
Saber brought up a very, very strong point. At one point, I seriously had thought about ending it all, but during that process, I had scared myself straight, thankfully. I realized the amount of pain that I was going through just to make that feat. And I asked backward the other way, and I got better. I mean,
And not
and
everybody.
I was suffering majorly from depression. It's not overpressure or anything like that. It's just the fact is, nobody connected with me, and so I ended out here in this little bubble nobody would talk to. So I got depressed over it. That was my issue, but I have since got a lot better.
Yeah, like I said, there's always a way. There's always a way. You just have to be strong enough and willing to look for the answers. The answers aren't always right in front of our faces. Sometimes it's a waiting game. Like for Sushi, she had to wait until eventually she had her birthday present
30 years.
pretty much come knocking at her damn door for her to finally say, hey, there's someone that actually does care about me. For me personally, I didn't give a shit if people did or didn't care about me.
Okay, check this in.
Okay. I didn't give a shit because of the fact of, like I say, my personal belief is that I enjoy life. I've enjoyed all aspects of life, from, being an outdoors types of guy, dealing with the military, helping those that need help, and putting those who need putting down. I'm not speaking on that though. But yeah, there's so many answers other than taking one's life to deal with the stresses that come with being not only a fucking American, but just being alive. It's not just us. I mean, suicide is not a small fucking thing. It's a big thing. It affects everybody: young, old, rich, poor, black, white, American, non-American.
Guess what I did to them this time?
What?
I put him in upside down.
So the way they rise, they're flat
Yeah.
on top. But so yeah, so I vented my say so on it. Like, yeah, if you have suicidal thoughts, don't do it. Just don't. The price that is paid, not by you but by those around you. And you may think there's nobody fucking around you because you feel like the world is so against you. Trust me, there's at least one fucking person that has to pick up your burdens of you being so selfish. And right now, I guarantee you that's what's happening with this whole incident with this streamer, content creator. But yeah, so I mean, that's all I can really say on the matter at hand. I didn't know the guy well. I encourage people to seek help when they think that there is no help. They need someone to talk to. I would love to, extend a voice, an ear, to just listen to a person's problems to help them get through the fucking day. That's what I did as a fucking corpsman. Like I said, for a week, sitting down with this Marine who had the balls to jump 90 feet off a fucking ship into, you know, open waters, all because of a Dear John fucking letter, man. And I don't mean to ridicule those that are going through it, but I will ridicule you, those who did go through with it. So, on a closing note, because right now I will stream later on today dealing with Sushi's car. We have to get that taken care of. And is there any other running around that we need to do beside your car?
The plates for the bed.
No, it should be fine for now. Oh, now that I secured it with all that tape. It is Gorilla Tape. That shit's not going anywhere. But yeah, man. So I'm gonna put this video on Twitch as well as YouTube. Just here, hold on. Let me also promote something real quick. I know I shouldn't, but I'm going to promote something here to just, let's see, display capture. Oh wait, cancel. We already have one. Where is it? Where is it? There it is. Add existing. I really need a second monitor to deal with this shit.
With slide overs and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, so like I could have my display window on a second monitor,
Mm-hmm.
but we could just set it right here for now while I pull up the. there's a sushi over there. There it is. So there's a suicide prevention hotline number right there. Um, if you feel that you yourself are painted into a corner, your family members are pieces of shit, because I will admit there's some fathers and mothers out there that don't give a fuck about their kids, as well as grandmas, grandparents, cousins, aunts, and uncles that don't care about the next family member. There are total fucking strangers that are willing to help people that fucking need help. Reach out. Don't be an idiot, because, like I say, life is fucking precious. You only get one. We like to think now that this new thing, there's certain religions that do this shit too, but a lot of damn, actually, now that I think about it, not a single fucking religion that I can think off the top of my head thinks that suicide is okay, besides the nut job ones, like the ones that did that Haley Comet bullshit. Like, even the ones that say that, like, if you commit suicide and you be reincarnated, you'd be reincarnated as something lesser than something greater. If you live your life to its fullest and you live a good life, when you reincarnate, you are ascending. But if you live a bad life or you do something as stupid as take your own life, you descend and you take a step back. Like you'll probably like come back as like a slug or a fish or some shit. Rather than going up and being, in some religions, being reborn as a cow is a thing. And being reborn as a cow is like the greatest honor one could have. But yeah, but like, don't take your lives. I can't stress that fucking enough. There's too much to enjoy out of life. Like, for me, when I was dealing with my depression, because I had lost, my corpsman, job essentially, and the military said that, thanks for serving with us, but, here's free education, go and do something else. I went through a huge depression. And then on top of that, while dealing with my depression, my ex-wife couldn't deal with the stress of my night terrors, my depression, and all that stuff. I began overeating like crazy, and I gained a lot of weight. Like, I'm like almost, I think, 80 pounds heavier than when I was in the military. But I'm making the proper steps to lose that weight. But like I said, though, you have to be addicted to something. My first addiction was eating. I ate like a monster. But now my addictions now are puzzles and video games, which is not a bad one. Don't let any addiction can go too far and do damage. There's even people that are dying from gaming too hard. That is another topic for a different day if I decide to keep talking on the internet about this stuff. But fucking reach out. There are people that love you. I'll share this one last story, and as a kid I didn't understand it, but as an adult I fully understand it. My Aunt Patty, who owns a farm up in Northern California, her and my Uncle John. Her Uncle John is actually my relative, but I enjoyed Aunt Patty a little more because she was a veterinarian, and I fucking love animals. But I remember one time, she was watching this video. It was like I forget if it was a religious video or just a video to help with people dealing with depression. But she was watching this video, and this is in the days of VHS. That shit was a cassette. And I think it was called something like the blind hand or the helping hand or some shit like that. And what the video was there was this man, middle-aged man, kind of like, worn out, looked like he had been crying, he was drinking and whatnot. And he was walking along like an overpass, so like a busy freeway. And as he got to like the center of the overpass, he stopped and takes a look, and like the sun is setting. Like, I remember this because what happens afterwards will explain everything. But like, you see the man's face is tearing up, and then off to the side you see like these group of like young guys, white, black, male, female, just like pointing at him. Some of them are laughing, some of them look like they're pantomiming jump and shit like that. And then the guy starts making the motions to get ready to jump off the fucking overpass. And then as he's thinking about doing that final jump, out of nowhere, you don't see his face. You don't see his body. You just see this old hand come up from behind the guy who's getting ready to jump off, grip him on the shoulder, and slowly pull him back. And after that, like, he turns around, you still don't see the old man's face. Whoever this hand fucking belongs to, you don't fucking see it. The middle-aged man hugs the person, and then it just fucking ends right there. And when I saw that video as a kid, I had no fucking idea what was going on. No idea. But I turn around and I see my auntie, and she's like me right now, just fucking glassy-eyed, snot coming out of her fucking nose. I was like, I have no idea what I just saw, but it was beautiful at the same fucking time. And that's also, I think, a reason why I enjoyed helping people, because here you got this group of people egging on this middle-aged man who's at the end of his line, which is very much still the same goddamn thing between your Twitter, Facebook, any social media revenue that you take. You got people telling you, eat a bullet, do this, or, go play in traffic, shit like that. And then here you just have one fucking old dude who owes nothing to this man that's getting ready to take his life. And the simple notion of putting his hand on his shoulder and pulling him back stops everything. God damn, if that wasn't powerful, I don't know what else there is. Well, with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and take a break, get myself cleaned up, and handle with Sushi's issues. And then we will be back on later. Until then, stay strong. And like I said, if you need someone to talk to, reach out. There's ways other than how that idiot took things. So just be aware that there is more to life than how he did it. So love y'all and take care. You have anything to say?
Nope.
All right then. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.